President Joe Biden unveiled sweeping student loan relief Wednesday, making good on a pledge he made in the 2020 campaign for the White House. The U.S. government will forgive $10,000 in student loans for millions of debt-saddled Americans, even more for low-income borrowers.
And I'm honoring that commitment today. Using the authority Congress granted the Department of Education, we will forgive $10,000 in outstanding federal student loans. In addition, students who come from low-income families, which allowed them to qualify to receive a Pell Grant, will have their debt reduced $20,000.
Canceling the debt will free up hundreds of billions of dollars for new consumer spending that could be used for home buying and other big-ticket expenses, according to economists, some of whom said this could add a new wrinkle to the country's inflation fight. Many Democrats had wanted more and had pushed for Biden to forgive as much as $50,000 per borrower. But Republicans are mostly opposed to student loan forgiveness. In a statement Wednesday, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell blasted the move, saying, quote, "President Biden's student loan socialism is a slap in the face to every family who sacrificed to save for college, every graduate who paid their debt, and every American who chose a certain career path or volunteered to serve in our armed forces in order to avoid taking on debt." Biden pushed back.
I will never apologize for helping Americans, working Americans middle class, especially not to the same folks who voted for a $2 trillion tax cut that mainly benefited the wealthiest Americans and the biggest corporations.
U.S. consumers carry a massive $1.75 trillion in student loan debt, most of it held by the federal government, the result of university tuition fees substantially higher than in most other wealthy countries. A senior official told reporters the forgiveness plan could benefit up to 43 million student borrowers, completely canceling the debt for some 20 million. Biden said freeing up some of the student loan debt will see funds flowing back into the economy.
People can finally crawl out from under that mountain of debt, to get on top of their rent and their utilities, to finally think about buying a home or starting a family or starting a business. And by the way, when this happens, the whole economy is better off.
Around the world, Ukrainians and their supporters celebrated the 31st anniversary of the country's independence from Soviet rule, with Wednesday also marking 6 months since Russia invaded its western neighbor, triggering Europe's biggest conflict since World War II. In Berlin, several thousand Ukrainians marked Independence Day with a freedom parade through the city. A large Ukrainian flag was unfurled in the main square of Brussels, while other celebrations took place across Europe, from Greece to Poland to Ireland, with celebrations in Ukraine canceled due to fears of heightened Russian attacks. World leaders also weighed in. French President Emmanuel Macron, in a speech, promised Ukrainians long-term support.
Vous pouvez, en ce 31e anniversaire de votre indépendance,
On this 31st year of your independence, you can be proud. On this 31st year of the modern life of your country, of its borders, and of its incredible resistance these past 6 months.
exceptionnelle depuis 6 mois.
And just 2 weeks before he is due to leave office, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson made a surprise visit to Kyiv on Wednesday, promising $63.5 million more in military aid. Across the Atlantic, U.S. President Joe Biden announced nearly $3 billion for weapons and equipment for Ukraine, Washington's largest aid package to date. A White House national security spokesman said Biden would call Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Thursday. Zelensky himself appeared on video at a meeting of the UN Security Council in New York and said that Russia launched missiles at a railroad station in Ukraine, resulting in injuries and deaths.
This is our life every day. This is how Russia prepared for this UN session.
Russian Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia at the UN session reiterated Moscow's rationale for its actions, saying a special operation was needed to, quote, denazify and demilitarize Ukraine. In its first 6 months, the war has killed thousands of civilians and soldiers, forced more than a third of Ukraine's 41 million people from their homes, left cities in ruins, and shaken the global economy, creating shortages of essential food grains and pushing up energy prices. Moscow's stance has been dismissed by Ukraine and the West as a baseless pretext for an imperialist war of conquest.
The widow of late basketball star Kobe Bryant was awarded $16 million by a jury on Wednesday after photos were leaked of her husband and daughter's fatal helicopter crash in January 2020. That's according to multiple media reports. Vanessa Bryant was present in the LA courthouse when the verdict was read after an 11-day trial. She had sued Los Angeles County, alleging invasion of privacy, accusing members of the sheriff's and fire departments of sharing graphic images of the crash in unofficial settings, including to patrons in a bar. 7 other people died in the crash in Calabasas, California in 2020. Another plaintiff in Bryant's lawsuit, who lost his wife and daughter in the crash, was awarded another $15 million. Vanessa Bryant also filed lawsuits against the helicopter charter company, as well as the deceased pilot's estate. The county already agreed to pay $2.5 million to settle a similar case brought by families of others who died in the crash. Kobe Bryant was 41 when he died. The Los Angeles Lakers great and 18-time All-Star won 5 NBA championships and was elected to the Hall of Fame the year he died.
I also am blessed with...
When Tara Migliore Potter heard U.S. President Joe Biden say $10,000 of her student loans would be forgiven, she was ready to celebrate.
I'm going to raise a glass and toast with my friends that, a lot of us have been carrying this debt for years, and that we get to at least see a piece of it forgiven is really wonderful.
But in practice, she's not sure what this forgiveness means for her life.
I don't know if it's going to change my payment amount very much or at all. If I were able to have more money in my monthly budget, it would mean saving for retirement, buying life insurance, things like that, that just ensure that continued financial stability, because that's not something we have right now. All the money goes to current living expenses and paying off this debt.
Potter, who works at a Seattle food bank, said paying off these student loans is like living in a hamster wheel with no end in sight. She said she's ready to support collective actions like the Can't Pay, Won't Pay student debt strike organized by the Debt Collective. The group is a national organization that's pushing for full student loan debt cancellation. Madeline Clifford is a volunteer with them. The 35-year-old is a writer and musician in Oakland, California. After a master's in fine arts at Mills College, she has roughly $100,000 in student loan debt.
What we're doing with the Debt Collective is really pushing and applying that pressure, because a full cancellation is also like, it's like, oh, you're asking for too much, you're asking for too much. I'm asking to be back at zero. I'm asking for a fair chance, like, to actually build wealth.
Clifford believes it's important to keep pushing because too many people have their lives swallowed up by their educational debts.
Biden's announcement means that we need to continue to apply pressure, because it's great that he's made that decision and he's made the right decision and he's going in the right direction. But also, as people, we don't have to accept crumbs.
U.S. consumers carry a massive $1.75 trillion in student loan debt, most of it held by the federal government. Republicans have mostly opposed the student debt forgiveness, calling it unfair, but in defense of his decision announced on Wednesday, Biden said it would see funds flowing back into the country's economy.
The Uvalde, Texas School Board on Wednesday fired the school district's embattled police chief over his handling of what became the deadliest school shooting in nearly a decade. The massacre at Robb Elementary School in May left 19 children as well as 2 teachers dead. Texas officials say at the time, Pete Arredondo acted as incident commander in charge of law enforcement's response to the shooting. Parents of children both killed and wounded demanded his dismissal since the incident. Classmates and relatives of the victims were present in the meeting on Wednesday.
If a law enforcement's job is to protect and serve, why didn't they protect and serve my friends and teachers on May 24th? I have messages for Pete Arredondo and all the law enforcement that were there that day. Turn in your badge and step down. You don't deserve to wear one.
The board's decision was unanimous.
Mr. Board President, I move that good cause exists to terminate the non-certified contract of Pete Arredondo effective immediately.
Arredondo, who was also forced to resign from his seat on the Uvalde City Council in July, did not attend the meeting. A written statement from his attorney was emailed to board members, citing death threats and what Arredondo said was the district's lack of effort to provide any protection for him. One attendee was critical of his absence.
Our babies are dead, our teachers are dead, our parents are dead. The least y'all can do is show us the respect to do this in the public.